Let's take it forward then. Our first guest on the show this morning is Robert Subramaniam, Head of Global Macro Research at Nomura. He's joining us from Singapore. Robert, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining in. So like I said, we don't know which way all of these meetings are going. Eventually, hopefully, there's a breakthrough, especially for us from India. So let's work with what we have right now. What we have is come the 27th of August, we're looking at 50% tariff on all our U.S. exports. How do you look at India amidst all of this? And do you think it could have a meaningful repercussion on the economy and the outlook here?
I mean, if the 25% so-called penalty tariff goes into effect on 27 August, as you say, yeah, that would have a very big impact. I think it is. We have to appreciate as tariff rates go higher and higher, the impact on the economy is likely non-linear. You might remember when China and the US had their tariff trade war and tariffs went over 100%, it got to the point where it was almost like a sudden stop in trade. So the impact gets increasingly bad the higher the tariff rate goes to where it's just not economical to trade. So, you know, we'll have to see. This may not go through. It depends, I think, partly on what happens with the Russia, Ukraine, US, EU talks that are ongoing now. If that comes out to be a good outcome, maybe the financial sanctions and so forth on Russia will come off. The other thing I would say, though, is India, I think, is doing a very good job on looking at policies to kind of offset the tariff impact. So domestic policies, you know, whether it's encouraging the public to buy India products, whether it's the VAT rationalization or ease of doing business, I think there's a lot in the works that will help counter at least the 25% tariff. I think it would be harder to fully counter, as I said, if we get the tariff rate going up to 50%.
Right. How do you model the, let's assume 27th is not far, 50% goes into effect, Rob. Morning, Prashant here. How do you model for that?
Prashant.
You say, let me change some numbers, and how will investors look at it? I mean, obviously it can't be permanent, right? I mean, it's not, it's not negotiated down before 27th, it will be, perhaps takes more time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to model, to be very honest with you, Prashant. I mean, the reality is if you're looking at the details, it's not completely 50%. There's a lot of exclusions that are involved as well. And as I said, the impact starts to be non-linear as tariffs go higher and higher in terms of, is it economical to still make those exports? So, you know, we're at the moment, we have not modeled into our forecasts an additional 25% yet. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of economists and market participants. I think it's kind of waiting and watching to see what happens. And I think my sense, speaking to investors overseas, not so much in India, is that if that penalty 25% tariff does go into effect on 27 August, I think that is not fully anticipated. And so you will see a negative response to that.
Hi, Rob. Good morning. Good to see you. Nigel on this side. You know, in times of uncertainty, you look inward. And what kind of measures can the government do or the regulator or the RBI do to help the domestic economy? That said, the RBI, well, the monetary stimulus has been quite good. You know, they have eased rates considerably. Do you think there's more in store? There's an outside chance maybe we see another cut in December? Or do you think the RBI is done with what they had to do for 2025?
That's a great question. I would say, you know, the S&P upgrade that India was awarded was very well deserved. And it's a reflection of, I think, years of prudent monetary and fiscal policy that India has achieved. And that puts India in a good position. In a way, it's saved for a rainy day to be able to ease policies in response to this external headwind of tariffs. And we've seen it, and we think there's more to come. So, you know, on the RBI, we do think inflation has come down nicely, and we think that there will be 2 more rate cuts before the end of the year in October and December. And then on the fiscal side, you know, this VAT rationalization, we don't think it's actually going to add that much to the budget deficit. We think it's going to be cleverly crafted where low cost products are going to have moved down in the rungs of VAT rates, but expensive products, luxury items are going to go up. So the net effect in terms of revenue raising won't be such a big hit. We think it may only add maybe 0.1% of GDP to the budget deficit. Maybe it could be even revenue neutral. We'll see. But we do think it will help support consumption, especially lower income households. And we think it's going to be disinflationary, so provide more support for the RBI to cut rates. So overall, we're getting more optimistic on the monetary and fiscal outlook. We think it will provide decent support to what we think is going to be a slowdown in exports.
Well, the policymakers here will really appreciate that view, Robert, because you seem to be saying that it's going to work like magic without causing any excessive damage. 0.1% increase in deficit, not much perhaps. You mentioned that if this additional 25% tariff were to come in on the 27th, it will have an impact. You meant from a market standpoint that it could, provide another leg down maybe for equities over here. You're saying it's not technically in the price.
That's right. It's hard to fully judge, but my sense speaking to investors is they're still not fully convinced it's going to go through, particularly with the stepping up in negotiations between Russia and Ukraine happening now. The probability, the likelihood that maybe there is a good deal and that this 25% tariff will not go in effect. There is a window for that. So, investors are open to that possibility. And I think as a result, are not fully pricing that this will go through. So if it does go through, I think it will be a negative for India.
Right. Rob, of course, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens, but would love to have you back after the 27th, one way or the other, right? There will be
Love to be back.
stuff to talk about. Thank you very much for joining us here today.